Welcome, everybody, to the Sentinel Report. I am your host, Alex Newman. We are so grateful that you're tuning in today, regardless of where you're hearing us or watching us, whether it's TV, radio, podcast, social media, Rumble, YouTube. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you get to our website, libertysentinel.org. We've got a lot for you on the show today. Robert F. Kennedy looks like, about to declare war on glyphosate, the toxic chemical sprayed all over your food that most of us have never even heard of. We also have another segment coming up with Dr. Joe Rigney about how the radical leftists have weaponized empathy against us. And also, folks, they're coming for your land. Doesn't matter what state you live in, they're coming for your land to save us from the gas of life. I wish I were kidding, but I'm not. All that and much more. Also, some really important stuff going on in the news, including some insights into Donald Trump's whirlwind tour across the Middle East. But first, a word from the Word. This comes out of Hebrews chapter 13, verses 7 through 9. I actually just made my kids remember this the other day. It says, "Remember your leaders, those who spoke to you the word of God. Consider the outcome of their way of life and imitate their faith. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. Do not be led away by diverse and strange teachings, for it is good for the heart to be strengthened by grace, not by foods which have not benefited those devoted to them." Folks, keep it in mind, right? And by the way, Hebrews is such an incredible book. Hebrews chapter 11, reading about how the faith of the greats from the Old Testament saved them was just, we had to read it like 3 times. It was so good. So go read Hebrews when you get a chance. Lots going on in the news, folks, and I do want to encourage you to share this out with others because they're not going to find this information in the fake news. Now, we just had last week the Deputy Secretary of State welcoming the first group of Afrikaner refugees coming to the United States from their native South Africa. These are salt of the earth kind of people. They're Christian people. They're patriotic people. They come in waving American flags. I want to show you the little video that the administration put out that just warmed my heart as somebody who's lived in South Africa, who has a special affection for these Afrikaners who've been so demonized by the lying, dishonest, fake, communist, globalist media. Check it out.
Welcome to the United States of America. A lot of you, I think, are farmers, right? When you have quality seeds, you can put them in foreign soil and they will blossom, they will bloom. And we are excited to welcome you here to our country where we think you will bloom, and we will hopefully allow you to have fulfilling lives for your children, and then when we will benefit alongside you.
Folks, if they're arriving in your community, you will be blessed to meet them. They are really, really great people, and I'm glad Trump is bringing them in. Now, the fake media is having a meltdown. Oh, my goodness, white Afrikaners, how dare you? Right? They're just losing their minds. The Episcopalian Church is really mad. In fact, they ended their partnership with the federal government because they refuse to settle these innocent people. And there's no problem in South Africa. They say none at all. Right? It's a figment of the imagination of white supremacists. Okay, this is how dishonest these people are. I want to show you Human Rights Day in South Africa. This is just filmed like a couple months ago. This year, by the way, this is Human Rights Day in South Africa. We're chanting and murdering about, we're chanting and singing about murdering European descent South Africans. Again, this is this year, folks. Watch.
All right. Yamasa. All right. Kita. Kilame. Kiriwata. Sarumo. Sarumo. Asisha. Where were you when I'm treated? Where were you when I'm dreamt? So fast, Kichi, Emoye, so fast, Kichi, Etati, Kichi, Kichima, Sipram Konto, Alliance, shoot to kill, Yamasa, kill the poor, the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer, brr, pa, pa, brr, pa, pa, tension.
Wow. Okay, so these are racist communists, actually one of the largest political parties in South Africa, openly singing, and you heard them, shoot the Boer, kill the Boer. The Boer are, of course, the Afrikaner farmers. Shoot them, kill them, right? On a stage, Nobody says anything. Now, anywhere else in the world, if one group of people was chanting for the extermination, for shooting, for murdering, for massacring another ethnic group, it would be front page in all the media. The UN would be demanding that America open up its borders, right? But here, you didn't see anything, right? It's not happening. You're a racist if you say anything about it. Folks, this is insane. Now, turning over to the United Kingdom, which of course has been helping this whole process along, you've got their radical left-wing Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, taking one step back after taking two steps forward on opening up the borders. Now, suddenly he says, without rules, we risk becoming an island of strangers. Now that Brits are literally the minority in your capital city, now that you've had a proud pagan from India as your prime minister after 1,000 years of Christian history, now you notice. Here he is.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together. So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower paid workers rather than invest in our young people, or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise, then you're not championing growth, you're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo.
Now he admits that the immigration system seems, and I'm quoting, almost designed to permit abuse. Well, if you had said that 2 years ago, they would have said that's racist, that's extremist, that's far right. They know that people are sick and tired of this, and so now they're lying to your face. They're spitting on you and telling you it's raining, folks. And they're doing the same thing here, right? Let's not kid ourselves. Now, Donald Trump's been running around in the Middle East, and he had some really important things to say. I got a couple of clips that I want to share with you. Here he is talking about how it's God's job, not the U.S. government's job, to dispense justice and judgment on foreign leaders.
In recent years, far too many American presidents have been afflicted with the notion that it's our job to look into the souls of foreign leaders and use U.S. policy to dispense justice for their sins. They loved using our very powerful military, and now it's really the most powerful it's ever been. We just are getting a budget approved, $1 trillion, highest budget we've ever had in history for military, $1 trillion. And we're getting the greatest missiles, the greatest weapons. And, you know, I hate to do it, but you have to do it because we believe in peace through strength.
Yep. And he also took on the globalists and the neocons like I haven't seen anybody do at this level in a long, long time. Check this out.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spend trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop cabal.
There you go, folks. Right? He's exactly right. Now, if you ever feel useless or hopeless, just remember it took the U.S. government 20 years and trillions of dollars and thousands of lives to replace the Taliban with the Taliban in Afghanistan. We were scammed on a massive level. And it's good to see somebody with the humility to acknowledge that and call it out, right? We need to stop pretending like there was any benefit to waging all these outrageous wars. In fact, it just resulted in more debt for the U.S. government for our children and the persecution of Christians. So totally failed, and glad to see Trump reversing course. Now, while he was over there, he also stopped in Abu Dhabi and signed the guest book at the Abraham family house. Look at this. Now, if you're not familiar with this, folks, I was actually over there just a couple of years ago, and I did a report. This ecumenical complex has got a mosque, a Catholic church, and a synagogue there. And it was inspired by a declaration that came out. It was called the Abu Dhabi text that really said some things that are very, very controversial. It was the Abu Dhabi document on human fraternity. And it said, and Pope Francis signed this, that God willed a pluralism and diversity of religions, which even Catholic bishops were like, wait, what? The Bishop of Astana, Athanasius Schneider, said that he said this, this will surely be corrected by the papal magisterium of the Cathedral of St. Peter. In other words, that's going to be overturned someday. Now, the great Archbishop Carlo Vigano, who of course has since been excommunicated, said that this was the temple of the world syncretic neo-religion, and it's about to arise with its anti-Christic dogmas. So I was over there, like I said, 2 years ago, and I filed this report. Check it out. So here we have the mosque. It's facing Mecca, also 30 meters by 30 meters, and it has arches. You hear the call to prayer now. There are 5 columns inside representing the 5 pillars of Islam, and so that is the complex. We're standing here in the garden that's right in the middle of the 3 structures. Supposed to be a symbol of tolerance and unity and peace, standing against what the Pope and the other leaders involved called extremism. Here we have some sort of pyramid structure with little holes in it for light. It looks like there's glass in them right in front of the St. Francis Church here at the Abrahamic family house in Abu Dhabi on the Arabian Peninsula. Yeah, folks, there's that weird pyramid there in the middle. I mean, I don't even know what to make of this thing, but I'll tell you what, very, very concerning as a Christian, because it seems to imply that there are other ways to God rather than just Jesus Christ, which is what the Bible teaches. Now, over the weekend, Trump really ignited some controversy by posting a video on his social media things, Truth Social, about the Clinton body count. And boy, is it time to reinvestigate this or what? Now, turning to Joe Biden, he's just been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer. Folks, I hope you will keep him in your prayers. This is a very, very sad thing. He's got a Gleason score of 9, and it's very sad. That's according to the official statement. And they said, while this represents a more aggressive form of the disease, the cancer appears to be hormone sensitive, which allows for effective management. So we will keep Joe Biden in our prayers. Now, Tesla has a new robot that looks like it's getting very capable. Frankly, I'm a little bit concerned. Check it out. Yeah, a dancing robot, folks. Are these going to be in everybody's home soon? I don't know. But I do know that the U.S. Federal Reserve is quietly buying up tens of billions of dollars of U.S. Treasury bonds. Literally, they vacuumed up $43.6 billion worth of bonds in just 4 days, folks. Unbelievable. Almost $10 billion of that is 30-year bonds just on May 8th alone, and another $34.8 billion. This is quantitative easing, folks. Make no mistake, they are printing money again. And wow, I'll tell you what, this is not going to work out good for anybody. Last but not least, we've got a preprint study out of some very prestigious institutions showing that if you took the flu vaccine last year, you were more likely to get the flu than if you hadn't. The study is called Effectiveness of the Influenza Vaccine During the 2024-2025 Respiratory Viral Season. And it concluded, quoting right here, the study found that influenza vaccination of working-age adults was associated with a higher risk of influenza during the 24-25 respiratory viral season, suggesting that the vaccine has not been effective in preventing influenza this season. So, folks, we'll be back with more after the break. Before we do go to break, I do want to encourage you to get over to refiningrhetoric.com, refiningrhetoric.com. That's where you'll hear from our friend Robert Bortons, the CEO of the Great Classical Conversations, the nation's largest homeschool organization. And, folks, it's really, really critical that we get informed on all these issues. And there's nothing more important than education, because that is upstream from culture, that is upstream from politics. So go check it out, refiningrhetoric.com and also classicalconversations.com. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to announce the next generation of energy drinks, Rev 7. It has no sugar and no caffeine. Instead, Rev 7 uses Go BHB. Go BHB is one of the body's primary ketones, and it provides the most efficient and clean fuel that your body needs. It also helps you stay energized all day with no crashes. Not only that, it produces 3 times more brain energy than sugar, which helps boost your memory, focus, and mental sharpness. It also helps reduce stress and helps balance your mood. Rev 7 does all that while being the best tasting energy drink ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% today. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7. For a limited time, you get our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. I drink Rev 7 every day and I absolutely love it, and so will you.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, thanks so much for staying with us or for joining us. And I've long argued that the left is manipulating not just the kids, but all Americans. And one of the ways they're doing it is through emotionalism. In fact, in the schools, that they're often conditioning these kids to respond to ideas or statements with emotion rather than thought or logic or reason. And we have a very special guest today who has done a deep dive into this subject. His name is Dr. Joe Rigney. He's a fellow of theology at New St. Andrews College, great Christian school up in Idaho. I've actually done a tour there. I think really, really highly of them and recommend it to parents looking for people, looking for places for their kids. Dr. Joe Rigney, in addition to being a fellow of theology there, is also associate pastor at Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho. He's a husband, a father. He's done several books. And his new book, The Sin of Empathy, delves deep into how we are being manipulated with empathy and emotion. Dr. Joe, thank you very much for joining us. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So talk to us about this sin of empathy. I think a lot of people are going to hear that and they're going to say, what? Yeah, why wouldn't you want to be empathetic? Explain what you mean.
Yeah, so the basic idea is compassion is a great and glorious thing. It's the disposition to share emotions, to help others when they're suffering. And so I'm all in favor of compassion. And for most people, or for many people at least, empathy may just be a synonym for that response. However, if you pay attention, you may have noticed over the last 20, 30, 40 years that the word empathy has kind of been regarded as an upgrade on compassion. So people will say things like sympathy was great, sympathy's okay, or maybe sympathy wasn't that great, but empathy is actually better. And when you actually analyze what do they mean by better, what you discover is that empathy is a better response to those who are in pain because it's a greater immersion in their emotions and their feelings and in their suffering. And that's precisely where I come in and say I think that this is a problem. If you get untethered from the truth, untethered from reality, untethered from what is good, then our feelings for others can become highly destructive. And so the argument of the book is that this is precisely what's happened. Under the banner of empathy, people have learned to prioritize their feelings over what is true and what is good. And therefore, it's become a tool of manipulation in the hands of the sensitive and their advocates who wield it against soft-hearted people in order to set the agenda for a family or a church or a school or all of society.
I've seen this deeply embedded in the education world as well. The social emotional learning, this new thing that's all the rage. One of their, they call it a competency. One of their competencies is empathy. And when you dig into these different programs, you see that they mean something very different than normal people do with empathy. For them, empathy is supporting open borders. It's supporting abortion, supporting the castration of boys who've been brainwashed to believe that they might be girls. And you know, a normal parent hears, oh, empathy, and they don't realize that this is deeply, deeply sinister stuff. Now, you talk in the book about how pity and compassion are being manipulated by the radical left to actually control the cultural narrative, to break down our old culture and bring in a new one. Talk about the societal impacts and the implications of what you're describing.
Yeah, so I think you just gave some great examples there of the ways in which the left has discovered that this is a very useful steering wheel on the backs of soft-hearted people, particularly conservatives. Because if you're a Christian, as I am, a Christian pastor, you've been taught you should be kind and tenderhearted. Christ is a model for compassion. His compassion is why we're able to be saved in the first place from our sins. And so you have in your mind a compassion and care and pity are virtues. And so if you can smuggle relativism, if you can smuggle falsehood in under that banner, it's a very effective way to do it, because Christians want to have a good reputation in this regard. We want to be known as compassionate people. And so if you can come to define what compassion means, and compassion here means affirming, validating, celebrating things that the Bible actually condemns, But under the name of compassion, you have to mute yourself. You have to not say or not resist. Instead, you have to validate and encourage. It's a very effective way to hijack a good thing and turn it into a bad thing. And this is something I learned from C.S. Lewis. In a number of his books, he talked about the way that natural loves, when they set themselves up as gods, become demons. So something like mother love in general is a great and glorious thing. But mother love, when God's hand is not on the reins, becomes tyrannical, possessive, devouring, and is something very approaching hatred even, because of how all-encompassing and devouring it can be. I think the same thing has happened with this so-called virtue of empathy. When it becomes untethered from what is true and what is good, it becomes a similar form of emotional blackmail. You don't love me if you don't affirm my pronouns. You don't love me if you have a border. In fact, I had a friend sent me a picture from the border, the Mexico side, where on the border wall in big block letters was written in graffiti, empathy. And I thought that's exactly the point. I couldn't have thought of better advertising. If empathy means you're not allowed to have boundaries, not allowed to have borders, not allowed to have any separation between you and me, and therefore I'm at the mercy of wherever your emotions want to take us next.
I'm so glad you wrote this book, and I'm so glad we're having this discussion. This is something that Christians really need to understand. Let's get into the practical implications. What does this mean for everyday Joe Christian? How do they distinguish between empathy and biblical compassion? And how does this change our behavior, our outlook, the way we deal with other people?
Yeah, so biblical compassion always reserves the right not to blaspheme, not to lie. It will feel for the hurting. It will join them in their suffering. The Bible tells us to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. So emotion sharing at some level is good, but it needs to be anchored. It needs to be anchored to Christ. It needs to be anchored to what's true. And so it always reserves the right not to blaspheme and not to tell lies. And so when you're asked in the name of compassion to say something false, you have to be sturdier than that. You have to be grounded in who God is and what he said, and refuse to repeat the lie, even though you'll be manipulated and blackmailed by those who want you to say falsehoods in order to be a good member of society, in order to be known as a quote unquote good Christian. This is a kind of fortitude that we have to recover as Christians, to be actually compassionate, which means to speak the truth, to do so in love, to feel sorrow when people are hurting, but not to allow that sorrow to overwhelm us. And I think we recognize this when it comes to other emotions. We know that we can be blinded by anger. We know we can be paralyzed by fear. So we recognize the way that these other emotions, these other passions, can overwhelm our rational faculties, so that we don't see clearly or think clearly or act rightly. And my argument is simply that empathy, pity, suffers from the same temptation when it's anchored to so I use the analogy in the book. If someone's drowning in quicksand, it's good and right to try to help them, to reach in to grab them, but you want to remain tethered to the shore. Grab a branch, hang on to the sides so that you can pull them out. Whereas empathy demands jump in with both feet, dive in head first, come all in. And in doing so, now you have two people who are drowning.
Fantastic. What's the best way for people to get the book?
Best way would sinofempathy.com. You can get it direct from the publishers, or you can get it at Amazon or wherever other books are sold.
Excellent. And I know you have another book that kind of touches on this, leadership and emotional sabotage. Before we let you go, we've only got about 2 minutes left. Tell us real quick, how does this intersect with leadership and emotional sabotage?
Yeah, so that's kind of a broader book that's kind of the antidote. In some ways, they pair well together. The Sin of Empathy is a deep dive on this particular cultural problem of the way that our compassion has become a tool of manipulation. Leadership and emotional sabotage provides the antidote. What does it look like to be a sober-minded, stable leader in your home, in the church, in the world, so that you can resist the various forms of sabotage, whether empathetic manipulation or slander and name-calling, the kind of anxieties and angst that's churning all around us. So they pair well together, but one's more of the positive prescription and one's a deeper dive on what ails us.
And how can people follow you, Joe? Are you on social media? I know you're a fellow of theology at New St. Andrews, but how do people follow you in particular?
Yeah, actually, so on social media, Joe_Rigney is my Twitter handle, or X handle, I guess now. But if you really want to find stuff that would really benefit probably your listeners, canonplus.com. It's a ministry business out of here in Moscow that has a lot of resources. It's kind of a cross between Audible and Netflix. So great family content, kids shows, as well as documentaries teaching on how to keep your kids how to keep them faithful. It's the sort of thing that the whole family can enjoy. And they actually gave me a fun little a coupon code. So Joe99, if you go to canonplus.com and use Joe99, I think you get a month for 99 cents if you want to sample and try it out. But it's a great resource. Our family uses it as a way to have uplifting, edifying, vitamin type resources for the family.
Yeah, we just had Doug Wilson on, who just had another book published by that publisher, and great stuff you guys are doing. Well, Dr. Joe Rigney, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for your work on this. I know it hasn't quite become a major topic of conversation in churches across the country yet, but I think it needs to. So thank you very much for what you're doing.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. All right, folks, stay with us. We'll be right back with more here on the Sentinel Report.
In 1776, a nation was born, forged in the crucible of revolution. Brave men and women stood together fighting for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile. For free activation, use promo code Newman.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. Alex Newman, your host here. Folks, all across the country, funded by federal tax dollars or money they borrowed from the Chi-Coms or printed over at the Federal Reserve, they are stealing enormous amounts of some of the best farmland in the country, all to save us from that terrible gas called carbon dioxide, the gas that you exhale about 2 pounds of every single day. It's absolutely patently absurd, but it will be coming to a community near you if you're not careful. Joining us to discuss is the one and only Rebecca Terrell. She's a fellow senior editor at the New American Magazine. She's been there since 2022, although she was a contributor going all the way back to 2009. She does a lot of great work, and she is also one of the key people behind the new documentary about these crazy carbon capture pipelines that was just released a few weeks ago. Rebecca, thanks for joining us. It's great to have you here.
Absolutely, Alex. It's great to be here. And thank you so much for talking about this very important topic, important to us all.
Yep, very happy to do it. And Rebecca, there's a few things. I want to start with just a little bit of an overview, because I think a lot of people out there haven't heard about this. If you don't live in the Midwest, you're not a farmer, you haven't watched our documentaries yet, you probably don't even know what we're talking about. Give us some background on these carbon capture pipelines. What is this whole issue?
That's absolutely right. We don't know about it, but you're about to find out about it, because the Department of Energy in 2022 announced 96,000 miles of this pipeline across the United States of America, meaning there is not one state that will not be affected by this. It is funded completely by our tax dollars through federal subsidies that have been set up since the 1990s. This was actually a tax credit was started back, I think, during the Bush administration, the first one, IRS tax code number 45Q. And every single administration since then, whether Republican or Democrat, and including Trump's first administration, upped that tax credit. And now they've included a loophole where these companies can come in and get cash in hand, amounting to billions of dollars in tax subsidies, taxpayer-funded subsidies, to put in these very dangerous liquid carbon dioxide pipelines, funneling them thousands of miles. Right now, what they've proposed is through some of the most valuable farmland in our country, all, of course, yes, to save Mother Earth, save us from this horrible gas, CO2. Oh my word. This is the food that feeds our food. CO2 is plant food. So they have, and they know also that this process of capturing the carbon dioxide is actually net carbon additive to the atmosphere. That's demonstrably provable on paper. You can get the numbers out and you can prove that for every ton of carbon dioxide that you're capturing. You're releasing more than that into the atmosphere. They know that. That right there proves there's another agenda afoot, and that is what this documentary answers.
Yeah, and it does it very, very well. And I don't just say that because you and I are featured in it, but it's a great job. There's several things I want to talk about before we get to the preview. And folks, I do want to encourage you to go watch this movie. It's actually available for free right now, so take advantage of that. You really need to see this. It's airing on some cable broadcasters and other venues. You really need to see this. But Rebecca, what do you suppose is their agenda? Why are they pushing this?
Absolutely. This is kind of an onion, so you have to peel back the layers. The ultimate agenda, Alex, is depopulation. But I know when I just say that just blatantly like that, it sounds like tinfoil hat stuff. No, we can actually, we do this in the documentary. We quote the actual sources. Like back in 1972, when the Club of Rome came out with we were looking for a common enemy to be able to push forward our depopulation program, and that was the environment. That if it weren't for mankind, Mother Earth would be just fine, but humans are the problem. But we quote that line, verse, and chapter of exactly what they have already said. We know that the United Nations Environment Program was built on all of those principles espoused by the Club of Rome, and now that's being pushed on us. We don't have to. It's their verbiage. Right after the 2015 Paris Climate Conference, Carlos Moreno published his book called The 15-Minute City. They want to take all of this land, all of our water resources, and funnel us into these 15-minute city areas. Again, don't take my word for it. Take the perpetrator's word for it in their own printed books. Right. This is something that people need to be aware of because it's already pervasive. They've been doing this for so long. President George Bush signed us on to the Agenda 21 back in the 1990s, and nobody paid much attention. Then his successor, President Bill Clinton, established a presidential commission to implement Agenda 21 on the local level. His commission recommended, they said, don't call this local Agenda 21 because it's going to bring out all the crazy crackpot conspiracy theorists. Let's call it instead comprehensive planning, smart growth. You will not go to one place in the United States of America now, one city council, one county commission that does not have either a comprehensive plan or a smart growth plan in place. And it's all been done with your tax dollars. These NGOs bring in the local Agenda 21 plans, and they have them all already laid out with all the glossy, all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. And the county commissioners don't know. They don't know that this is coming from the United Nations. So they think, oh, yeah, this looks good. Who would be against sustainable development? That's what we're all about. We're about our economic growth, right? Well, this isn't about economic growth. This is about that little buzzword, sustainable development, which, of course, there's nothing sustainable about it, and there's nothing developmental about it. It's all about depopulation.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned that. I did an interview with Donald Trump's climate advisor during his first term, Dr. Will Happer, just a few years ago for the New American. And one of the things he told me has stuck in my brain ever since. He says, the Earth is starving for more CO2. We should encourage people to make more CO2. He actually told me off camera that plants were designed to live in a world with 4 to 5 times as much CO2 as we currently have. And yet these maniacs want to suck it out of the sky. They want to tax us for producing it. They want to pump it underground, even though, as we saw, for example, in Mississippi, might end up killing you if we have a rupture in one of these crazy pipelines. And there's another thing I want to talk to you about as well. As you know, we at TNA cover these UN climate summits. And just a couple of years ago, I was on the Arabian Peninsula for the summit in Dubai. And I was able to ask 7 U.S. senators about the fact that Donald Trump was probably going to be the next president. And, Americans don't believe you. The polling data shows most Americans don't even believe that human activities are the cause of climate change. So what are you guys going to do? How are you running around here promising all this money? And what they told me was astounding. I actually want to play that clip real quick so people can hear. This is Senator Chris Coons, the other senator from Delaware. And listen carefully to what he says, ladies and gentlemen. This is absolutely crazy.
There was a poll released several months ago. AP Nork Center for Public Affairs Research found that less than half of Americans even believe that human activity is causing climate change. About a third are willing to pay even a single additional dollar on their electric bill each month to deal with climate change. And with the very real prospect of Trump coming back to the White House in 2024, how is the U.S. government planning to make credible commitments on funding and on these other issues that you guys are talking about?
Senator Coons, who chairs that committee.
That was part of why I spoke to what I think is both the structure of the Inflation Reduction Act, which has directed tens of billions of dollars already to construction projects in predominantly red states or politically conservative states, and to the way that we've been able to get out of my subcommittee and pass through the full committee an additional $1.5 billion in investment in combating climate change, predominantly in the global south, with an overwhelming bipartisan margin. So am I suggesting that were the former president to be our next president, everything would be fine? Not at all. But I'm saying that there is a broad enough and deep enough support for continuing investments to combat climate change and for the Inflation Reduction Act and bipartisan infrastructure law in particular that we will continue. We'll continue to move forward regardless.
Unbelievable. I mean, right there in plain English saying, basically, we're bribing all your Republican congressmen. We're bribing all your Republican governors by building climate projects in their states. This carbon capture pipeline thing, that's a big part of that, huh, Rebecca?
It absolutely is. And, you know, something that's tied right into it is this blue hydrogen that's coming out. Now, we know there is absolutely no market whatsoever, nor is there any demand. So there's no supply, no demand for this blue hydrogen, which is supposedly clean. But what they do is they extract hydrogen from methane using natural gas, which is an extremely energy intensive process. They release in this process carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. There's nothing wrong with that. But to make it clean, they use carbon capture for it. And Trump has come in, you know, Biden had all this funding in the Inflation Reduction Act for blue hydrogen as well. Well, you add carbon capture to it. That's what makes it blue. Trump's all for it. He's wanting to pull back on green hydrogen, which uses so-called renewable fuel sources to extract the hydrogen. But, you know, what I want to say to people about this hydrogen, does no one remember the Hindenburg? It went down in flames, and that's because it was fueled by hydrogen, or it was kept aloft by hydrogen. And that's the reason we don't use hydrogen, because it's so flammable, because it's so dangerous. And now they're talking about changing our economy, transporting our economy from a fossil fuel-based economy to a hydrogen-based economy. There is no market for this except for the federal subsidies. Again, billions upon billions, and it's all part of this local Agenda 21. They implement everything at the local level. The good news is they knew in the United States of America they had to implement all of these boondoggles at the local level, because that's the way our government is built. You know, we're supposed to have control at the local level. So that's why they've gone, and we can take back control at our local level. We have to educate our city councilmen. We have to educate our county commissioners, or run for office yourself. There's a lot of power at that local level. There's a lot of power that your local sheriff has in nullification. He could say, not on my watch, not in my jurisdiction. You're not bringing that unconstitutional federal dictate down on us. Now, we do have to be careful, because they're trying to pass, and Trump's behind this, that big, beautiful bill he talked about, that big spending bill they're trying to pass before Memorial Day, that includes a federal preemption over any state laws that ban eminent domain for these hazardous carbon pipelines.
Oh,
and it
wow.
includes that. Yeah, he's trying to get that passed right now.
Somebody must have snuck that in there, huh?
Right.
Yeah, and we've seen the effect of this now. I mean, the very next year at the UN climate conference in Azerbaijan, 5 Republican congressmen showed up. Every single one was touting the CO2 reduction efforts, including these ridiculous carbon capture pipelines, because now there's tons of money. There's a constituency in their district. I would argue, Rebecca, and I think you would probably agree, that being informed on this is step one. We're almost out of time, but I want to air the preview we have for this incredible documentary, Unearthing the CO2 Pipeline, and we'll come right back after this preview.
Iowa could soon be part of the largest carbon capture pipeline in the world.
I've got this weird paperwork in the mail.
They didn't tell us anything. They just dropped this on us, and we're all supposed to let these people in.
Carbon capture and storage is the process of taking carbon dioxide from ethanol plants, compressing it down until it's kind of a thick fog, and then sending that semi-liquid hundreds of miles away.
Get the kids in the house. the pipeline has exploded.
Nothing is written federally for safety regulations for a CO2 pipeline.
There's no pipeline this big with this much pressure in the world.
The war on CO2, I think, is calculated to harm humanity and harm the planet.
Now that the informational meeting has been held, Summit can start negotiating with landowners in this county.
My grandmother had been deceased for 2 years. She was sued by Summit Carbon Solutions.
Their whole approach has been to intimidate people.
We're talking here about a giant full frontal assault on private property rights.
He said to us, either you cooperate with us now, or when we get eminent domain, we'll put the pipeline wherever we want on your land.
They've been rude, they've been pushy, they've lied to us.
We're dealing with an effort to reinstitute global feudalism, where you own nothing, you do what you're told, whatever you produce, your overlords have first dibs.
They are allowing that easement to be put on that business's balance sheet.
This is much bigger than just carbon pipelines. This is part of a global agenda that involves the eradication of small and independent farms, technocratic control of governance, the regionalization of government, the undermining of individual liberty, the centralization of the food supply.
46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities.
The bulldozers lined up to bulldoze through the best farmland in the world and destroy their property rights in the process.
I said, sir, will you rule out the use of eminent domain, yes or no? And then he said, no, we can't.
This is about undermining freedom, undermining prosperity, undermining private property rights, and ultimately empowering totalitarians to rule over all of us.
Rebecca, this is your baby. I mean, how do people watch this extraordinary documentary?
Absolutely. It is at standyourground.watch. It's not .com and not .net. It's .watch. Stand Your Ground Studios. So look that up and share it. Please share it with everybody. We've got to get this word out. This is like you said in the documentary, this is a frontal assault on private property rights, but it's a frontal assault also on our food security and ultimately our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rebecca, before we let you go, I know you have some really, really cool stuff in your career background. I used to work in Ron Paul's office as a legislative aide, and you were instrumental. In fact, I think you wrote the bill to get us out of the United Nations, the American Sovereignty Restoration Act, that, of course, was introduced in Congress many times over the years. Is that really the end solution for dealing with all this crazy tyranny that the UN is trying to impose on us?
I would say it's a first step, wouldn't you? Because, I mean, yes, we need to get the United Nations out. We need to dismantle it entirely. But we also there's something called the federal bureaucracy we need to dismantle pretty much in an equal way. But that's on home front. You know, the United Nations is something we should never have gotten involved in the first place. So we rejected the League of Nations, which was the trial run. You know, we were smart enough to do that. The insiders were clever and pulled the wool over our eyes with the UN. It has supposedly, the purpose of it was to bring about world peace, which we see so much of, don't we? Right.
Peace means the absence of all resistance to their evil plans, huh?
Exactly. And what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Yeah, we need to pull out of that godless organization because there's nothing peaceful about it. There's nothing. I mean, we're about to come out with another edition of the New American, and I think June or July, that exposes what the United Nations has done in its history since 1945. The child trafficking that's going on because of it. The horrible thing, the takeover of our money supplies, and everything that the United Nations has accomplished in its history, and we're funding it. We fund almost a quarter of the UN regular budget, besides all of the other money that we funnel into it through all the different programs. So
yeah, and folks, I encourage you to go sign up for the magazine. You can become a subscriber over at thenewamerican.com. I'm a senior editor there as well, alongside Rebecca and some other great American journalists. Rebecca, thank you for what you do. thenewamerican.com, also standyourground.watch to watch this documentary for free. How much longer is it available for free? I think you guys are going to remove it for free pretty soon, right? How much longer do people have?
We were planning May 21st was going to be the last day that it was available, but we've extended that for 30 more days because of the extreme public response that we've had because of it. And we really want to get into before the eyes of elected officials, especially state and local elected officials. And of course, federal now, since that bill they're trying to push that bill through Congress right now.
All right, folks, go check it out. Standyourground.watch, standyourground.watch. Rebecca Terrell, thank you so much for all that you do. Thank you for joining us today. Hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Thank you, Alex.
Absolutely. All right, folks, stay with us. We'll be right back after this quick message with information on Robert F. Kennedy and glyphosate, the chemical that has been sprayed on crops for a long time now. Stay tuned.
Are you concerned about your child's education? Have you considered looking into alternatives to public school but don't know where to start? Greater Than I Ministries will give you the tools you need with a free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Biblical Worldview video series. Available on DVD or streamed to your home or device, this series will thoroughly equip you and your family with the truth you need about the battle of ideas being waged against our families and our nation. And our free Home Educators Kit will provide you with links directly connecting you with all the resources you need if you're considering rescuing your children from the public indoctrination schools. Go to gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top to receive your free Home Educators Kit and 15% off our Thinking Like a Christian Worldview video series. Again, that's gtimin.com and click the green banner at the top. You'll be glad you did.
Welcome. Thanks for being with us here on the Sentinel Report. I am, of course, your host, Alex Newman, CEO of the Liberty Sentinel. Get over to libertysentinel.org. You can find our free newsletter. You'll find all kinds of really important news, all the different shows we do, our list of sponsors, and so much more. Folks, what's going on, not just in the Midwest, but across the country, is our crops have been sprayed now for years and years with a chemical that is highly controversial, to put it mildly. It's called glyphosate. And Robert F. Kennedy, our relatively new Secretary of Health and Human Services, seems to be moving against it. Some people are actually calling it the war on glyphosate. Joining us to discuss is a returning guest. His name is Nick Wallace. He's a regenerative farmer up in Iowa. He's the man behind oneacreiowa.com. They make these amazing beef sticks, and I can't keep my kids away from them. They're really good. We don't have an active agreement with them, but if you use the promo code Newman, you'll get 10% off on these. It's really, really good stuff. But we brought him on because he knows a lot about natural farming and the dangers of some of these things. Nick, thank you for joining us. You've done a lot of businesses. You've done farming and regenerative agriculture for a long time. What do you say about glyphosate? Are people right to be concerned about this?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. This is a very passionate subject that I think directly affected me. I'm 47 now, but when I was 19, 20 years old, I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma, which is a cancer of pretty much environmental toxins, right? They don't have an answer to that. So that means toxins were the issue. So for 27 years, I've been waiting, along with a lot of great researchers who have been trying to run the warning bell that glyphosate is causing a huge swath of cancers and autoimmune diseases across the country. I think we're finally at a place where it's like the showdown, and you're going to have to pick a side whether or not you support glyphosate or not. There's a bill going through Iowa, and I think there's 8 or 9 other states. They tried federally, couldn't do it. So now they're pushing through the states to give glyphosate and the makers of and the users of immunity. So it's not trying to ban glyphosate. It's just saying that if, unfortunately, you're diagnosed with cancer or an autoimmune disease, you can't come back and sue us for damages. Didn't get enough steam to make it through the I think it was the House that it wasn't going to get enough support, or the Senate. One of the two. So I think they're going to shelve it. But they will bring it back, and now we got Bobby Kennedy talking about it. Nicole Shanahan, a lot of people in the Maha movement are saying enough's enough. We need to take a hard look at glyphosate, because in the mid to late 90s is when it started being sprayed everywhere all the time. And you look at the charts, and you're going to see the foundation of the health of the country really, really spike upwards late 90s and the last 20 years. So,
yep. Yeah, it's fascinating, Nick, because I'm usually not one to agree with like the environmentalists and stuff. Yeah, I love the environment. I want it to be nice. I don't want the pollution and stuff. But so often they go on these silly crusades like against carbon dioxide and stuff. Like, what are you guys doing? But on this issue, the more I dug, the more concerned I became. In fact, I think it was last year we had a special issue in the New American magazine, and there was a whole article in there by a medical doctor about how glyphosate actually killed certain critical bacteria in your gut that were necessary for proper digestion. And apparently this was causing all kinds of health problems. And then the more I learned, like glyphosate is paired with these genetically engineered seeds that apparently are resistant to this stuff. And like, man, there's something really, really fishy going on here. Talk to us about the corporate interests that have really pushed this out there so successfully over the last couple of decades.
Well, you have a company that's putting billboards up across Iowa and these 9 other states, Modern Ag Alliance. And it's all about how glyphosate is the key component to make farmers successful, right? I think glyphosate might be the one chemical that has gutted rural America because it allowed farmers to farm more and more and more crops and acres because it's like a one pass in the spring, kills all the weeds. Can't have any weeds in the fields anymore. Otherwise, you're a bad farmer, right? And those weeds aren't weeds. Those weeds are there because the soil's calling for a deficiency of a certain mineral or element. And those weeds are trying to bring that to the surface, decompose, and then give that soil what it's calling for. So, I mean, I just think glyphosate has gutted everything. And ironically, it's an antibiotic, and it guts the crop. It essentially chelates the micronutrients. It renders the plants autoimmune deficient or gone, and it allows for that plant to be succumbed by all the fungi, bacteria, and pathogens, which there's good and bad and all that, but it strips it of its natural immunity and renders it defenseless. Well, what do you think it does to the animals that eat it, and then we eat the animals, or we eat the wheat or the oats or the crop or the seed oils that are sprayed with it, right? We're essentially rendering our autoimmune ourselves deficient of immune system, and now we have pick your poison, right? Pick your autoimmune, pick your cancer. Iowa is now 49th out of 50th. They say I think they do it every 5 years. I think we will be 50th out of 50th. I don't know what more the adults in the room need besides a hard investigation. I mean, the science is already there, but I mean, now we're saying let's get to the proof of it. Fine, it's there. Can we uncover the hood and have a real debate about it now? The solutions are another potential segment, but we can get there. We can farm without these toxic chemicals, and we can feed the world, or start with ourselves, high quality, nutrient dense food. And I don't know if the world asked us to feed it. I think the world can feed itself. So why don't we just start with Iowans feeding Iowans, and maybe we can not have 50 out of 50 for cancer rates.
Yeah, I want to spend some time on solutions. We've got a few minutes left, but folks, it looks like, according to the Wall Street Journal, Robert F. Kennedy is coming out with a report that's going to single out glyphosate as one of the key causes of so many of the health problems that we're dealing with in the United States. So we'll see what happens with that. This is just in the news over the last few days. He has talked about it before, and he has brought attention to this, but now with the authority of the federal government behind him, things may be looking a little bit different. Nick, from your perspective, I mean, you're like doing this every day, but what is the way forward? How do we move beyond this basically federally subsidized crazy agricultural system to a real food system that produces healthy food, that supports farming families that need to make a living, and that doesn't poison our soil and our bodies?
Right. I'm a big decentralized guy. I'm sure you are too, a lot of your listeners. The answer isn't, big federal top down. Now it'd be nice if the federal government says, oh, by the way, these chemicals are, killing us. Maybe we should stop using it. But everything else should be bottom up, decentralized, local. So we don't grow food anymore, right? Iowa imports most of its food. We don't grow food. We grow corn, soybeans, and confinement pigs that Smithfield, the Chinese own most of them. So on my website, at the top right bar, there's a bar that's 1 acre vision. This is my solution that we need multiple farms in every state all across the country, that its main purpose is to heal. Now that can be start with healing the soil, right? We have products and partners that we can remediate the soil, but we've got to start healing ourselves. Like physically, we need to heal. Mentally, spiritually, we're broken. So healing isn't just the animals and the plants and the soil. It needs to be us. And we also need to bring back community, right? We've lost our community. We're even our neighbors now are strangers. Like we just don't have that calling to love and know thy neighbor. So community, healing, and celebration of food and music. So the 1 acre vision is a long, big goal, but that's my answer for a solution. And I think we can populate those all across the country. I'm not looking to do it myself. So anybody viewing wants to check it out and just join the conversation. And then if you want to buy a snack stick, that's our very first product. We are going to have a whole enterprise of products that come from the farm, and they're nutrient dense, and they should be celebrated. And I want other farmers to have their products. Like we used to grow food and they were delicious and they nourish the body and the soil. So the answer's difficult in a way because we have to, change the Titanic course. But, with Bobby Kennedy can get out there along with some of the other leaders, and we need adult leaders all over the place, especially in DC right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And Nick, you do a great job with these beef sticks. I mean, these things are really, really, really good, regeneratively farmed up in Iowa, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you for sending me these, by the way. I really like them. And folks, I think if you use the promo code Newman, you're going to get it's like a 10% discount if you choose to order some of these on your first order. So go check it out. You can find it at oneacreiowa.com. Nick, thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for joining us today to talk about this critically important subject. And I hope we can talk to you again very soon.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks to your audience. It matters.
Absolutely, it does, folks. If our health and the health of our children and the health of our soil isn't important, I don't know what is. So, folks, I want to thank you for tuning in to the Sentinel Report, whether you're listening to us on the radio or the TV or the podcast or even the social medias or the Rumbles or the YouTubes. We appreciate you very much. Get over to our website, libertysentinel.org, libertysentinel.org. We need your help. We need your support. Lots of great information there. You can find a list of our sponsors. When they benefit, we benefit, and you benefit. So go check it out. You can also donate if you choose to do that, and you can sign up for our free newsletter at libertysentinel.org/subscribe. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, God bless you all.